Hello and welcome to the Great Northern Game Night. I'm your host Tony,
I'm your co-host, Matt.
and we are here to talk about video games.
Oh, yeah.
I think the first thing that we're going to open with today, we wanted to talk a little bit about Mass Effect Andromeda.
Yes, it's part of a series that I've always loved, as you guys know. Well, you in particular, Tony.
Yeah,
And, this has been the big announcement from BioWare that they're working on. I think they're pushing for a holiday 2016 release. And since the announcement, that was at E3, right?
I think so, yeah.
That they first started talking about it? Yeah.
Yep.
Haven't been making any big announcements, but as people kind of ask them questions on Twitter and stuff, they are releasing little nuggets of information gradually. There's some that people have known for a while. They've talked about how they're not going to have the characters present in Mass Effect 3 present in Mass Effect 4, which I think is a pretty good thing. They're pretty beloved characters. But
I think they've actually confirmed there will be no returning characters from the first three Mass Effect games.
And
I think it's pretty cool because it's like they're rebooting the series, but it's not really a reboot because they're not like rehashing the same story. But you can jump in on Mass Effect 4 and it won't matter if you played the first three at all. So that's a pretty smart move, I think. Also, how many more times can they fucking kill Shepard and bring Shepard back?
Yeah, it's for the best.
I think let Shepard be dead.
Yeah, let him die. Let him or if you think he lived at the end of your game, whatever. Believe what you want to believe and start a new story. I think they feel like that a lot of people weren't too happy with the ending of the last one. It's pretty polarizing. But whether they thought they did good with it or not,
before,
yeah, sure. We're kind of regurgitating this stuff, but
I don't know if we've talked about it here on the podcast though. Actually,
no, maybe not.
Maybe a little bit. I don't like the fact that they changed the ending just because enough people bitched about it.
Well, to be fair, it's they didn't really change the ending. But they did tell you a little more about what happened.
They just kind of expanded on it, but
yeah. It's definitely good that they are going to a new galaxy. And to me, that sounds more like, okay, we don't want anything tied to the old story in any way. So we're gonna get way the fuck out of here and go. It's like 2 million light years or 2 billion light years away or something. The Andromeda. It's a really, really long way away. It's actually silly to even point that out. That's how far it is.
What I'm really excited for, they haven't talked a ton about the game. Like story stuff, I think they're trying to keep under wraps until they get closer to the actual release. But yeah. I think it would be awesome if this happens sometime in the future, like even further in the future than the first three Mass Effect games. And that opens up the possibility for like new technology, completely different like types of weapons and stuff. They already said there's going to be new alien races as well as some of the previous alien races.
They did clarify that when they were talking about the characters. Although previous characters won't be coming back, they said previous races that you're familiar with may be present.
Still hope for the Elcor.
Yeah, that Elcor fucking tank class, man. Let's do it.
No, I don't think there's hope for the playable Elcor, but there's hope for an Elcor.
I think there's more of a chance of it happening in the multiplayer now. That's another detail that they've actually recently confirmed. Well, I mean, everybody kind of knew that if they made another Mass Effect, of course they're going to bring the multiplayer back from ME3. Because whether you like the core game or not, I think everybody that played that multiplayer thought it was pretty good. There was definitely one of the high points of that game. And they would have been pretty dumb not to try it again. But, now, with the new game being on the Frostbite engine, Battlefield, right? There it is.
Yeah.
So I think that they said there's going to be bigger multiplayer matches. They might still be co-op, they might not. But I think
they confirmed there might be like competitive stuff, but there will be co-op as well. They confirmed. Somebody on Twitter said like, if I die before Mass Effect Andromeda comes out, just promise me that co-op multiplayer will still exist. And the person that they tweeted that to that works for BioWare said, your dying wish is my command.
Oh, that's pretty extreme. So there it is.
See, I would love for there to be an actual like co-op storyline in that game. I don't think there will be though. I think they're pretty dedicated to focusing completely on the single-player storyline for Mass Effect. But I think it would be cool if they just, like, they could easily, like, shoehorn in a second player on a single-player campaign. Like, I mean, you have all these people on your ship all the time anyway. So Like, imagine if each of you just like one of you had to play like the commander of the ship, but the other person could just pick one of the crew members that you get, like that's normally played by NPCs.
You know, it's interesting that you point that out because if you're someone who has kind of followed Mass Effect, been there from the start, there were earlier builds of Mass Effect 1 that didn't, these didn't make the cut. But in those builds, you could actually play as other characters in your squad. You could switch control from Shepard to Garrus or whoever you had with you. Now, they axed that for the final build of the game, and you just play as Shepard. But they've clearly been thinking about it for a long time. Like, that was back before 2007.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, if they want to take it in that direction. It would be a new thing for Mass Effect, but I think it would not be unwelcome. I think a lot of people would like that.
I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You already know my feelings on co-op experiences anyway, though. Like, I'm totally always down for a co-op game that has like an actual campaign. And it would be cool if like, I mean, this probably is not going to happen. I imagine if something like this was going to happen, they would have already announced it to really build hype up. But like, imagine if you're like, we'll just call him Shepard for now, even though they're not going to be Shepard. But like, the person hosting the game plays this Shepard character, and they can customize, like, they can pick a race and they can customize their character. And then the second player has to pick somebody that is a crew member that you can pick up normally in the single player.
Yeah.
And then, you know, whatever logistics around that.
So are you saying like you'd want a separate campaign, like kind of like Portal 2 style, where they had the co-op bits on their own story, like off on doing their own thing, separate from the single player storyline? Is that what you mean?
Well, that would probably be preferable, but I know that you know, obviously that would take a lot more time. And I would be perfectly happy with just having the normal campaign also playable co-op.
That would be interesting if they could just adapt it so that you could play through the same story but with a co-op style play. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I'd be down for that.
I mean, you look at Star Wars The Old Republic, they've got experience doing that kind of thing. Yeah. Sort of like adapting a single player. Because, I mean, when you play Star Wars The Old Republic, it's an MMO, but when you play it, it's basically like a single player game where other people are kind of like walking around the world. But all the story stuff is like, you know, it's a single player story, basically. Even if you're doing it in a party, your party members are only like spectating the storyline.
They can just like they can be present for it, but they don't interact really. Well, they do have on some of the story missions, like you pointed this out to me, you kind of vote for who wants to say which dialogue option, and then your character will kind of roll against the other characters, and whoever wins the roll gets to actually say the dialogue option. That was actually kind of neat. And like I can't think of another game that does that.
And if it was a dialogue option that affects your like karma or alignment, you still get the alignment for the choice you picked. If your choice
so it doesn't screw up your own progression. Yeah, it's a pretty smart system, actually.
I don't know. I think it could be pretty cool, but I feel like if they were building Mass Effect towards that at all, they would have that would have been like the first thing they announced, because that would like really build up hype, because that would be something completely new for the series.
Now, keep in mind, they're probably trying to avoid some of that kind of hype building stuff they've done in the past. Somebody tweeted, some BioWare person, I can't recall the name, and they asked if, you know, when are you going to show some gameplay? And this is something recent that was tweeted. And the developer just responded such that, like, they're too early in the development. Well, I don't want to say early, like it's only a year away now, but they're not even at a stage where they even want to show gameplay. Like they basically told the guy, like we're not ready to do that. We're going to show that later. So just sit tight. But
I was reading actually, and this is really interesting to me. They haven't cast a single voice actor for the game yet. Like I imagine they're building the game separately from the dialogue options, but I read an article from like 2 days ago that said they're still doing like auditions, and they haven't recorded a single voice line yet for the game.
Now, a lot of people are reading about that article that you're mentioning, and the common reaction is like, "Oh crap! Like it's only a year away. What are you guys doing? What's is there going to be a delay? What's happening?" Because voice acting is like easy compared to programming the game, I would assume. But
the same guy.
This is the plan, though. Like apparently, this is actually like right on course. So
the same guy that said the multiplayer would have co-op is also the guy. Somebody said, like, does this mean that we're pushed back from the release date? And he said, this is all according to plan. So
just this plan.
Yeah.
I hope it's not delayed. I mean, 2016 is still a while away. They've clearly been working on it for a while already, but I'm really curious to see how it goes. I want to jump back into that universe again.
Don't worry, it won't be delayed. They'll just release it buggy if it's not done by that, and then patch it later. because that's what happens now.
They'll release a DLC to fix it.
Yeah,
only $5.99.
Free DLC.
Yeah. I wonder, after that whole debacle with the free DLC for Mass Effect 3, like, I wonder if they're seriously going to reconsider that. Like, if they're going to just package more into the game, or if they had, plans for doing DLC, day one DLC, that kind of stuff that some people they like it, but a lot of people don't seem to be pretty happy with that kind of practice, This is sort of like a turning point, I feel, with a lot of games like that, where there's been so much publicity on that kind of content in games lately in the last couple of years. I wonder if we're going to start to see bigger companies like EA actually turn around on that. I mean, they like their DLC, so I don't know, but
they like their money. We talked. Yeah, this ties into the discussion we had last week about free-to-play games.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, I'm kind of looking forward to Mass Effect. It took me forever to finish Mass Effect 3, but I think a different setting, different characters, that kind of thing will really inject something into it. I was also reading that the combat is going to be more similar to Mass Effect 3's combat than anything else, but with improvements, apparently.
Yeah. I like that, actually. I liked Mass Effect 1 a lot, and there's some things about Mass Effect 3 that I actually prefer the way Mass Effect 1 did them, and Mass Effect 2. But, Mass Effect 1 was an experiment for BioWare, so it was pretty buggy and unpolished, and it was fun, it was cool, but there was definitely, a lot of things about it that needed to be polished up. The combat system was cool, but I liked the combat in Mass Effect 3 a lot. In fact, I would say that Mass Effect 3 probably has the tightest combat system in the series, I think.
2 was my favorite game overall of the series, but the combat was my least favorite of the 3 games in 2.
I would say 1 is probably my favorite game in the series, but I realize that it's very, very far from a perfect game. I wouldn't say it's the best game in the series, but it's my favorite.
I probably wouldn't recommend trying to play it again now. If you really like it, keep that image in your head. It's not even that old, but it really did not age very well, especially if you've played 2 and 3 recently. 1 it's like a slog to get through the combat in that game.
Well, there's a huge difference in the early game combat in Mass Effect 1 versus the end game. By the end game, you're a god. And at the start of the game, why are you even a soldier? You suck so bad. With
Mass Effect 1, it's almost partly RPG type of combat. Even if you're aiming perfectly at the enemy's head, your bullets will just go wide because you don't have the skill to use them or whatever, which I really don't like in shooting games. I realize it's becoming more prevalent in shooting games. That even if you aim perfectly, your gun has, and I understand that that's more realistic. If you aim a gun, there's a chance that it's not going to hit the target anyway. But I mean, come on, I'm playing a fucking video game.
Well, remember, that was made by devs that were fresh out of Knights of the Old Republic, Jade Empire, that kind of game.
Yeah,
well, actually, did Jade Empire come before Mass Effect? I think it did.
No idea, probably.
But yeah, primarily RPGs. We're talking old BioWare here, right? Yeah. I don't know how many of them are left at this point, but Mass Effect 1, that was why it was an experiment for them, because they never made that kind of game before. I don't think they'd ever done a shooter before. So they were trying to make this RPG, which they knew a hybrid with a shooter, and some bits of it worked, some bits of it were kind of wonky, but it was popular enough that it spawned a huge following and sequels and stuff like that. So they did something right.
Yep.
Yeah, so definitely looking forward to that.
I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite shop on the Citadel.
There you go. That's I think that's all the news they've released so far. Like I said earlier, they're kind of trickling out little nuggets of it over
time. The Mako's coming back, stuff like that. But I think we've talked about that already, obviously. So because we talked about the Mass Effect 3 ending. I don't know if I talked about my distaste with them changing it, but we did talk about the actual ending before. So.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that. I'm not sure again if we did it on the show or not, but yeah.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for artistic integrity, which was the phrase they were throwing around back when that was still fresh in everyone's mind. And I still can't decide if it was a good thing to just make a thing and stick to your guns, or if you come at it from the service end, okay, people weren't happy with it, let's do something about it. Because that's the attitude that they go for with content updates, adding stuff to the game. If you look at a game like Witcher 3, they're patching in some features that people just really, really wanted, right?
Yeah.
Better inventory sorting and stuff like that. But I guess it's probably more of an issue with a game like Mass Effect, just because the changes that they're making are affecting the story, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I can understand people not being happy with it, but I mean, you didn't know the ending when you bought the game. It could have fucking been anything, and if it was a bad ending, are you just gonna bitch until they give you your money back? Like, no, you committed to buying a game that had a specific ending. You decided, okay, I'm gonna buy this game, and then you bought the game, and you were like, okay, I'm not happy with the game. Too fucking bad.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have thought about that before you bought it the day it came out. Wait
That's
for some reviews or something.
And that's why there's so many people now that actually wait before buying a game.
Yeah.
And they're becoming more common. Thank fucking God.
Yeah, I'm like on the fence because I can understand being frustrated at the ending, but also, you know, that's the ending. Like, they made that ending.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, too fucking bad. You bought the game.
And at least if you hated the ending, then, well, now they're doing a totally clean start in a different fucking galaxy with Andromeda. So maybe it won't be that bad.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that's all we have for Mass Effect. So we can probably move on. I think what we wanted to talk about next was XCOM 2.
Do you want to do the trade-in first and then segue into that from my XCOM, or do you want to start with that?
Let's hold off on XCOM 2. We'll talk about that at the end of the episode.
Okay.
I think we still have a little bit of time before we need to get into the trade-in. I just wanted to talk. This kind of expounds on what we were talking about last week and the week before. So we were talking about like free-to-play games and mobile games and how shitty all those trends are that we're going towards. Another thing that I really wanted to talk about was the Steam Greenlight system, which... So Steam Greenlight, for anybody that doesn't know, you can basically like submit your game to like this user moderated section of Steam called Steam Greenlight. And if your game gets enough votes, like if people vote for your game, then it gets put into the Steam store, which is a cool idea in concept, but it does not make sense for video games. So basically what this system is these people submit screenshots of a game that they're making, and they describe the game, and users have to vote based on just screenshots and a description of the game. Oh, I'd like to play that game. Yeah, that sounds kind of cool. And that is what decides if this game gets into Greenlight. And then you get shit like Journey to the Light. For anybody that does not know, Journey to the Light is a game that was put onto Steam Greenlight by pretty sure a 17-year-old kid. It is supposed to have like 9 levels, and it's supposed to be the hardest game on Steam. And it really is the hardest game on Steam because it was released with 1 level, and there's no way to beat that level at all. And there's no actual other levels in the game. When called out on this, the person who made the game said, I released some bug fixes and accidentally deleted all of the levels except for the first one. And then that was all anybody heard from him. Steam initiated like no questions asked refunds for that game, no matter how long ago you bought it. The guy that made it.
And by the way, Steam, that's really, really important because Steam is a service that for years is notorious for not doing refunds on anything you buy.
Oh, yeah.
They almost never ever do it. They only recently started having a refund system.
Steam is super hands-off.
Yeah. So for them to do this, and like usually if you wanted to beg customer service for a refund, you would really have to like sing them a song and dance, man. Like you had to really try, and they would only do it once as a gesture, right? And now this game comes along, which is so bad that they're like, all right, you know what? It doesn't matter. Everybody just line up, refund. Come on, let's do it. It didn't matter when you bought it, how long you've played it, no conditions.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that guy, he deleted like his Twitter account and all his social media. He has gone into hibernation on the internet after the disaster.
Yeah, he's in internet hiding.
So he was using all kinds of like scummy, like he was like, oh well, if you can't figure out the level, there's hints on the trading cards, but you can't get trading cards in a game until you've played it and owned it for over like I think 2 hours, which is conveniently
that's the return policy,
past the return date. There's achievements for completing every level. The creator of the game is the only person that has any of those achievements, and he only has the achievements for the first 3 levels, which he can give to himself. So when people started complaining and like raising a stink to prove that there's extra levels, he started posting like hints, but he started posting hints for the second level, not the first level, which nobody has gotten to because there's no way to progress past the first level. So the level is like there's these lamps all throughout the level, and you're supposed to like turn off and on certain lamps, but pressing the interaction button just flips the state of all of the lamps. No matter where you are in the level, it toggles all of the lamps that are on off and all of the lamps that are off on. It's like it's super obvious. Like there's still people that are like, "Oh, well, someone like unpacked the code for the game," and they're like, well, it could still be obfuscated code. There's no proof in this that, there's no extra levels or whatever. But I mean, it's pretty fucking obvious that there's only one level in the game. There are some people that played the game for like 8 hours and didn't get past the first level. Like they legitimately tried like everything there is to try.
Yeah, so it was pretty bad. Pretty damn bad. And I mean, that's where you're going with this, right? Like Greenlight's a good idea, but then guys like this, people like this, can kind of get filtered through just based on a few screenshots.
Yeah, and
of promising content, right?
And even worse than that, I mean, there's not really any filter because it's user-based stuff. But there's like people will promise like, oh, if you vote for my game, I'll add this and that to the game, or whatever, and that's how they get votes on Greenlight. Or they like post on Reddit and they're like, check out my new game, I'm a struggling game developer or whatever. They're like, most of these games, they're not getting through just based on votes of people that want to play them. They're getting through based on the votes of like someone like begs for a vote and the person's like, fuck it, whatever.
Yeah,
so like basically. There's all these games, and there's like this weird trend, like now there's all these weird Japanese visual novels getting put on Steam, which is like they're like skirting the edge, like borderline completely inappropriate to be on Steam.
Well, I've heard that games like that can get in because Valve doesn't actually care about the content of the game. All they care about is like in the marketing and the screenshots and stuff that you don't have sexual content in those, like on the store page. But they don't seem to actually care if you just throw a porn game up on Steam. Apparently not.
That stuff makes sense to me, I guess, because they shouldn't be policing content on there. I mean,
well, they have age gates on M-rated games and stuff.
Yeah,
on Steam.
Which,
not,
I mean, you can surpass an age gate easily, but that's always been a standard.
There's so many people born on January 1st.
It seems really weird to me because Steam, more than pretty much any other distributor, they could do like actual age gate stuff, because most people who have ever used Steam have used like a credit card or a PayPal account to buy a game on Steam. And technically they could use that information. Well, not like the information from the credit card, but I mean, if you don't have a credit card on file, they could like ask you for your age or something. But if you have a credit card on file, that should be like proof enough or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's just, Steam is starting to look like the app stores on mobile phones, basically. There's all these like barely games, like a visual novel is not really a game. Although
I guess even more than that. Like there's music on Steam that you can buy, and like movies. And apps that aren't games, they're software,
Yeah.
And a lot of it's development tools and stuff like that. But it's definitely way past games at this point.
Yeah, and it's like there's just like, I mean, I say visual novel's not really a game. I think it's probably more of a game than like a fucking Telltale game. But we already covered that, so we won't stir up that drama again. But,
yeah,
I mean,
good times.
There's like these games, and a lot of these games, they're only getting through because the people say like the price is going to be low and that there's going to be trading cards. So people are buying like $3 games and then they're making their money back in the trading cards, and that's the only reason these games are getting any sort of sales. Which I really don't like. You should have to pay like $5 or more for a game to get trading cards from it. You shouldn't be able to put trading cards on like a 99-cent game, because that person is going to sell so many copies of that game completely based on just people getting the trading cards and selling them.
It almost sounds like the same kind of mentality that we were talking about, I think it was last episode, when we were talking about mobile games. And there's so many like garbage shovelware games that the developer doesn't care about. They're just vehicles to make money, and that are being thrown up on mobile app stores and stuff like that. That's what it feels like. It really does.
Yeah. It's I mean, there's like all sorts of, I have a visual novel pulled up in the Steam store right now, and I wanted to talk about this because you can read the Steam reviews of a game and you can pretty much get a feel of exactly what's going on here. We've got a game called Neko Para Volume 0, which is just some visual novel like where there's a bunch of cat girls or something. And we've got great Steam reviews like buying this game can prove you are not a gay. can I star my sister in Volume 0? That person has less than 4 hours on record of the game.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's how long.
Here's a person with 103.8 hours on record with this game. And part of their review, their thumbs up review, is couldn't beat the game. We've got... I mean, most of these reviews are from people who are not American, clearly, and that's obviously like the target audience for these games.
It's all the Japanese people, right?
Yeah,
that's got to be it. Isn't that where these games come from?
Here's my favorite review of Necropara Volume 0. This person has 51 hours on record. You only have one life, so here is the another way to make a happiness for you. 1. Go to Steam Store. 2. Find Necropara Volume 0 and Volume 1. 3. Check it out. 4. Spend your lifetime playing the game. 5. Have a good night. Since the game has a great quality about those pictures, voices, and interface, you will have a wonderful moment.
So polite. Love it.
But there's so many of these like positive reviews of these are people that have like less than an hour in the game. 0.6 hours on record. If you like pussy, you're going to like this game.
I get it.
Yeah.
It's a good joke. Yeah.
It's like clearly like these people either they bought the game like because it's a $3 game, so they either like bought it just as a joke to check it out, or they bought it for like trading cards, and now they're writing like a hilarious Steam review. But as a result of these, oh, this is so funny, look at this funny review that I posted, this game has like overwhelmingly positive reviews. 0.8 hours on record. The only regrets are those of my parents.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Like there's so much like Steam has it's become this platform where like the people vote basically. So like there's Greenlight, there's Steam reviews, there's like tags that you can add, there's all sorts of stuff, and there's even you can mark a review as helpful, not helpful, or funny. Who fucking cares if the review is funny? Why is that an option? Why would you even provide an option to vote for a game to be funny, a review to be funny? That's like enticing people to write these stupid ass reviews that have no bearing on the game. This game has 18 negative reviews and 1,065 positive reviews.
You know, it could just be a really good game.
It could be, I guess, but you can't tell looking at these reviews because you've got 3 hours on record. I can finally touch girls now. 0.9 hours on record. Who knew a single button could change a man's life? Like, if you scroll down this, you can see some actual reviews. Like, people who actually put time into writing this review, explaining, like, how the game goes, you know, exactly what goes into the game. And then, you know, you have people who said,
like the pros and cons.
This is why we don't need a girlfriend. And that's a positive review right there.
Yep.
That's, great review. And it's like, the problem is Steam has shifted so much from like a thing where Valve just, you know, they pick a game and they say this game's going to go on Steam. This is, you know, we trust this developer. We believe this game is going to sell well. And now it's like, bring on all...
It's that one, though. It's the second one there. Like, we think this game will sell well. Because the way Greenlight works, I think, is once a game gets enough yes votes, and I think that the no votes don't actually count towards it. They're a gauge, but you can't be voted off of Greenlight.
Nope. You used to be able to, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe in its infancy,
yeah.
I think. But there's a point where you get enough votes, and then they kind of say, okay, yes. At this point, the game doesn't go on Steam immediately, of course, but then Valve will actually talk to the developer and be like, okay, let's talk about the game. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what goes on after that. But clearly, there's not a lot of quality control happening.
Well, there's none.
So
there's the only time any kind of quality control steps in is when a game is literally broken or does not deliver a game like Journey to the Light did.
Yeah.
And it's the problem is, I mean, you're opening the floodgates for internet trolls, basically.
Yeah, and set the precedent.
It's Valve used to be like, let's use like a really weird analogy here. Valve was like a sniper up on the roof, and it was just picking off these really good games and putting them on Steam. And now it's up on that roof with a fucking shotgun, and it's just blasting down into the street. And it's like, if we just open the fucking floodgates on Greenlight, all these fucking games are going to get through, and some of them are going to sell and make us some money at some point. So they're probably making more money now than they ever have before with how open Greenlight is, but there's definitely something to be said with the integrity of your product here.
Like, you know what started all this?
What?
Team Fortress 2. Okay?
Team Fortress 2 started pretty much everything.
It's the hat mentality that they moved it to Dota, and now they've totally blown it into the entire Steam platform.
Yeah,
they know that
they're not game developers anymore, basically.
They really aren't. I'm sure they have some people that are working on something behind closed doors or whatever, but how long has it been since Valve has actually released a game? And I mean a Valve game, not a game that they just bought the devs for and said, okay, let's put the Valve name on it and get it out there and make some money. But when was the last time they really made a game? Does Dota 2 count? Do you think?
Kind of. But they hired the one of the people that worked on the Dota 1 mod to basically make Dota 2. Yeah. So IceFrog works for Valve now, but I mean, the core team of Valve is basically supporting their existing products and expanding Steam to be this all-encompassing monster that makes them tons of money. There's another game. It's just like a dating sim on Steam called Sakura Spirit, and it is $10. It has a warning on the page that says this game includes nudity and explicit sexual dialogue, and it has 4,700 positive reviews and 1,000 negative reviews. And again, you scroll down and it's people with 2 hours in the game. They should offer this game as a bundle with a pack of tissues because of the emotional story, of course.
Yeah. That actually sounds like
this person has 668 hours in this game, Matt. That's it's a fucking dating sim. There's probably not even 10 hours of content in it.
I'm blown away that there's even 1,000 negative reviews, honestly.
Yeah, well, this game's been on Steam for a really long time, I think. So
okay.
But it's just this ridiculous half the games that are sold on Steam nowadays, I feel are hey, look at this funny game that I bought. It was only $2, so it was worth it for the joke. Most of the people buy them so they can troll people on their friends list or show people that they bought this game or make a funny review of it, because I don't think you can leave a review unless you buy the game. So
I think that's true.
People have literally decided that getting a funny review on a game is worth $3 or whatever. And that's exactly what Valve wants.
Yeah, I think Valve doesn't look at Greenlight the same way they did when it was actually new. I think now they probably think it's kind of a joke at this point. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of them are actually kind of lobbying to get rid of it and just be like, all right, let's try something else. This isn't working. Because I can remember before Greenlight was a thing, Gabe Newell, and again, I referenced one of his videos in another show we did, but there's a video of him doing some interview, and he was talking about Steam as a platform and how he wishes there was a way to do what Greenlight basically is, or like Kickstarter, where you can sort of he calls it a seed round. You put up a game and say, hey, this is my idea. I want to make this game. And if you want a piece of the game, if you want to be an owner or investor, chip in a few bucks here. Basically Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
And this was a few years before Greenlight. And then Greenlight comes out. And it's not the same kind of system. I mean, users don't invest in the game, but they do vote for it. It's it is community-based.
That's the problem, too, I feel. I feel like Greenlight, if you're going to vote for a game, you should have to commit that you're going to buy this game. And that's the only way it gets on Greenlight, is if enough people decide, like a pre-order type of thing, which I don't really agree with, but as it is, there's no negative consequence for somebody to just go through Greenlight and upvote every game on there. Why wouldn't they? There's not any kind of you don't have to commit to buying it. You don't even have to post anything about it. You just have to click the thumbs up button. And when enough people do that, which, I mean, if you know somebody and they start linking you things, they're like, hey, go vote on my Greenlight, you're probably just going to vote yes, just because. There's no negative. There's no problem for you.
No reason why not to. In fact, given how successful Kickstarter's been, and some of the projects, like Star Citizen, that's probably the biggest one, but there's a few more of them, and not just video game projects, but fucking everything's on Kickstarter these days. I can't believe that they haven't introduced an actual crowdfunding thing to Steam. That blows my mind. There are so many platforms for it now. I'm really surprised that they don't want a piece of that. Or maybe they do.
I feel like people would complain about it, but it would be such a better system than Greenlight, because only only games that we get through are games that people have actually committed that they're going to buy. So like all these weird like visual novels and shitty like clicker games, like fucking Clicker Heroes and Cookie Clicker type games are on Steam now. You can use Steam to download a fucking Flash game now.
I have one.
You can pay Steam money to get extra things in this fucking Flash game.
Hey, we were talking about how we're worried about mobile games coming onto PC. There you go. That's what it is. Yep.
And they're free to play, so I mean, I guess no harm, no foul, but they're just mucking up the fucking Steam store list. Like,
well, when you have games like Adventure Capitalist, which, granted, is pretty fun for the first few minutes. I've played it. It's in my Steam library now, and I can't get rid of it. But that has the microtransactions in there. Like, you can buy gold or something and then speed up your clicks. Why? Who cares? It's there's no
people
progress you can make. Yeah, but
people would not. There would not be so many clones of Cookie Clicker if people were not willing to pay money on these games.
Yes,
there'd be no point to make it.
Like, was that the first Clicker game?
Yes.
Was that the first one?
There were probably some before it. That's the first one that got popular. Cookie Clicker is what started this whole thing.
It was pretty big, yeah.
I don't know. I want to get off this topic because we need to get into the trade-in, and I don't want to spend the entire podcast complaining. But I just
already have a whole episode of complaining.
Let's
tone it down a little bit.
And the reason that I thought of all this, the reason that this even entered my mind is Steam has this thing now where you can explore a queue of games, and it suggests these games. It's like, hey, you might like this game. There's no basis for the games that are put in that queue except this game is popular. Like, if you click on the queue, it tells you why the game is in your queue. And I've never seen one say, like, this is in your discovery queue because it's similar to X game or because you've played X genre of games. I clicked on it just now, and Zombie U has been ported to, like, PC and stuff. And
it's called Zombie.
Now Zombie is in my discovery queue. This game is in your discovery queue because it is popular. I don't fucking care. If it was popular and I liked it, then I would already own it. Like, it's got enough exposure. Fuck.
Yeah, it's only been out for years, you know.
Yeah. I really wish that Steam wasn't going in this direction. But and it's a Ubisoft game, by the way. It uses Uplay, so that should just automatically like keep something out of my discovery queue. The reason that I brought all this up is that Nekopara game was in my discovery queue, and it's like, what if I was browsing my fucking Steam account with my parents nearby or something? I don't want to see this shit. I'm gonna move on though. So I bitched enough about Steam today.
Let's change the channel here.
We are going to move on to the trade-in. And I guess I'll talk about mine first since we're going to segue yours into XCOM 2.
We're going to do that, but I'm really eager to hear about what you think about Enslaved, because that's a really cool game. So
I had Enslaved Odyssey to the West. I only played about 4 hours of it, but it's really not a long game. I think the average time to complete it is like 9 hours, and I got over halfway through the game in those 4 hours. Now, granted, I didn't do like all of the side stuff, but It's a short game. I definitely enjoyed it, though. I will say that. I want to start off with I really enjoyed the game. I like the story. I really like that it's kind of a different twist on the usual story that you're going to get in games like that. So, like minor spoilers, but for those who don't know, your character is enslaved, obviously. Like, you're on a slave ship when the game's cutscene opens. And,
that's the Journey to the West. That's kind of the premise there. You have a warrior who's sort of forced into servitude.
Yeah. So there's this girl on the ship. Her name is Trip. I don't remember her full name, but it's something ridiculous. And she tells me to just call her Trip. But she's escaping, and like your character wakes up in like this slave pod and sees her escaping, and like the ship is just blowing the fuck up. Which they never actually. I guess she must have sabotaged the ship. They never actually explain why the ship is like exploding into pieces, but it is. So you break out and you're trying to like find you try to chase this girl down, but she disappears behind a door, and your focus quickly shifts to I gotta get the fuck off this ship before it crashes. So that's like your tutorial to the game, you escaping from this ship, and then your escape is you like climb onto the last escape pod and you're trying to get in, and the girl is in the escape pod, but she doesn't let you in. She just launches it, and you get like launched hanging onto this escape pod. Your character gets knocked out, and when you wake up, she's put a slave collar on you to convince you to help her get home. Like, she didn't even she decided she wasn't going to ask. She just fucking latches a slave collar on your head.
You know, if she asked me, I would have helped her. Like, she's pretty hot.
Well,
I would be like, all right, yeah, let's go.
You would have helped her. Would Monkey have helped her, though?
Monkey probably wouldn't have helped her, no. Fair point.
So she straps the slave collar to your head, and if she dies, you die. And also, she can just, like, kill you with commands, basically.
Yeah.
But, so the game starts out, it's like this, it's a typical, like, you're escorting someone, and she supposedly can die, which is usually a problem, but I've never had any issues with her. Like, every once in a while an enemy will catch her, but she has, like, a one-time, it has to recharge, but it's like a get-out-of-jail-free thing. So if she gets caught, she sets off, like, an EMP charge and disables all the enemies around her for a short time. And you can go over and save her, and that's happened to me a couple times, but I've never had any issues where she's gotten, like, hurt at all, really.
I remember that from when I played. Like, it didn't seem like it was too heavy on the escort part of it.
But I mean, your character despises her, at least to start with, because, you know, obviously she is holding his life ransom to try and escape this situation that she's in. So it creates this really cool dynamic. And from where I'm at, I can already tell that it's going to turn into, like, this cliche love story type of thing, I'm certain. Maybe not like a full-on love story, but your character is obviously already developing feelings for her. Like Stockholm Syndrome type of thing, which I really wish wasn't the case. I would love if they were brave enough to have this storyline go all the way to the end, and, like, she lets your character out of the slave collar, and, like, your character kills her or something because he held her hostage or she held you hostage. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen in a game. They want a happy ending in a game. It's totally like it's an action game, kind of like God of War type of thing. It's 2-button action basically. Yeah. There's a block and you can, like, shoot. You have, like, this staff and you can shoot. So it's the Journey to the West story, which is, like, so much stuff has been based on, like, this is the story of, like, I think in the original his name is Goku, and it's like all these things are, like, based off of like Dragon Ball Z is based heavily off of it. Like, not really the story of Dragon Ball Z, but, like, kind of the characters and the setting type of thing.
Yeah.
So, but it's happening in this post-apocalyptic world, which, yeah, I know, post-apocalyptic, but to be fair, this game did kind of come out before every game was set in a post-apocalyptic world. So it gets a pass a little bit on that, I guess. But you're traversing through this, like, fucking ruined city. And some huge war happened. I assume I didn't get, like, far enough where I got a description of the war, but I assume it was like humans versus mechs. Like, something happened and some AI developed or something. Because all the enemies that you run into are they're mechs, like, they're robots.
Yeah.
And they're hunting people down to take them in as slaves, basically. But, like, even for as old as it is, the graphics are really nice. There's some weird graphical glitches with the game on my system, and I think those are just glitches, like, maybe this game doesn't like Windows 8 or something. So there's weird, like, every once in a while, like, the smoothed out, like, arm of Monkey will turn into, like, I can see the individual polygons, and it's all, like, jagged, and it looks like a Nintendo 64 arm. And there's, like, sometimes the textures will kind of freak out with color correction and stuff, but it still looks really good, and the setting is so awesome because it's, like, this totally fucked up, like, dilapidated city.
Yeah.
There's, like, vines growing in and out of the buildings and stuff, and they use the screwed up buildings to pretty good effect to keep the game linear. So it's a really linear game. Like, you progress through the level, making your way through, and there's, like, some minor puzzles, but they're not really, like,
nothing too
I had to do a thing where we were in, like, this theater, and there was this big mech called a dog chasing us, and I had to, like, traverse the upper area of the theater where the dog couldn't get to, and I had to pull some levers to straighten out these movable things on the ceiling so that I could jump all the way across to this thing that was really loose and knock it on the dog. But I mean, it was a puzzle in the lightest sense. Like, the game pointed the things out to me, and they were like, here's the levers that you have to pull, and you literally could only pull the right one. Like, you couldn't get to the wrong one to pull it, so there was no way to screw that up. But
yeah.
There's, like, an upgrade system and stuff, and one of the things that was interesting to me, but I think maybe they put a little too much value into it, is Trip has this ability to, like, distract enemies with a hologram. but it's basically necessary to use that. Like once you get that ability, you're using it constantly because you're just gonna get fucking destroyed if you don't use it. Like these things, the robots like detect you with lasers, and when they see you, they just shoot at you nonstop, basically. And there's some minor cover destruction mechanics that don't really like. Some cover is destructible and some isn't, and it's hard to tell what's going to get destroyed. But sometimes you'll be like hiding behind a wall, and it'll just get blown up by robots. There's not an actual cover system in the game, I don't think. You just you crouch down when there's danger, and like you can just kind of hide behind barricades and stuff.
You just literally move behind cover the way people used to.
I will say that it's really difficult sometimes, the combat. If you get into a fight with multiple robots, like I would call the combat clunky for sure. Like I unlocked a counter ability, which makes it a little bit better, but it's almost impossible to avoid taking damage if you're fighting like 3 robots at once. Because they'll randomly block when you're attacking, and the only way to break their block is to charge up an attack. But if there's more than one robot, while you're charging that attack, you're going to get hit by another robot. So it comes out to this thing where you're like trying to hit all 3 of the robots at the same time, and they all have the shield up, so you can't do any damage. But if you stop hitting them, they're going to start hitting you. So you're just like bouncing between enemies, hoping that the shield goes down randomly. The boss fights have been pretty cool. Most of the boss fights happen against the dog. There's one boss fight early on against this guy that like shoots his fists at you, but that guy becomes a normal enemy after that boss fight. Like the boss fight is just kind of to get you used to the enemy, and then he just appears as a normal enemy from time to time. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I like the story. I like the detail that goes into it. It's got pretty cliche twists and turns in it. Like, spoiler alert, about halfway through the game, there's 14 chapters in the game because there's achievements for 14 chapters. And in like chapter 7, you arrive at Tripp's home, and you're like, oh yeah, something fucking bad is gonna happen. Like, clearly the next 7 chapters don't happen right outside this home, and then we finally get in and everything's all peachy.
In the end, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, you get there at chapter 7 and you're like, oh, this is gonna be bad, isn't it? Oh, unfortunate things are happening, and unfortunate things do happen. But it was like, it's kind of your stock standard action game, but it didn't do anything like glaringly wrong, aside from the fact that the combat feels a little clunky sometimes.
Yeah, it definitely. I could empathize with that for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to finish it. I might finish it because I was actually like, it was pulling me in for like 2-hour sessions instead of me playing it for like 10 minutes and being like, I'm done.
Just getting tired of it. I kind of felt that way about XCOM, actually. Also, a point of interest, just to correct something, the main character's name in Journey to the West is Sun Wukong.
That's
Goku from Dragon Ball is based on Sun Wukong. That's the mix-up there. But that actually, hearing you talk about that actually makes me want to go back and finish Enslaved.
I think
like,
you
I
could.
play it through to the end.
I would say this is a pretty old game, but I think that it did age. I mean, it aged about as well as an action game would age. It feels like an action game that was just released yesterday because they all kind of follow the same gameplay mechanics.
Yeah. Well, you know what would there's something about the game that actually kind of makes me want to go back, other than what you're talking about. John mentioned this in the Twitch chat. He brought up the animations of the game, that they're very like expressive and cartoony. And it's weird for me to think about this now that this is true, but that kind of thing really like pulls me into a game.
There was
like no matter what the gameplay is, right? And they really do. Like from what I recall, the characters have pretty good expressions and stuff. Like they really feel real.
Will say there was a moment when you get into Tripp's village and like she finds out everything that's happened in there, and she's really sad, and like there's a face that she makes that like you could just screenshot it and make it into a meme image. It's like one of those like weird screenshots where like a face glitches out in Mass Effect, but this is the intended animation. It just looks really stupid. But other than that, the animations and the facial expressions are generally pretty good, especially for when it was released. I mean, when did this game come out? I want to say like 2008, 2009.
It's a few years old. Yeah, it's not a recent game. Absolutely not. Give me a sec, I can find out. But yeah, it's not a new game anymore.
I'll look it up. You can talk a little bit.
Okay. You want me to start in on my game then?
Yeah. I guess I'll just wrap up with Enslaved. It was a really good game. I'm probably going to finish it at some point. If you like action games, I would highly recommend that you actually play it. Andy Serkis does the voice for Monkey, which is awesome. And
He's
also,
spectacular.
so there's some parts where like there's like headband glitches or whatever that you see, and you see like these flashes of what the world was before the war, I think. And I think some of the pictures show Andy Serkis, like they took pictures of him like in San Francisco or whatever, and like put them in the game. 2010 is when it came out.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, it's
so
not too old, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's middle-aged.
All right, let's start into XCOM because we're running low on time.
All right. Well, yeah, I definitely am. I'm glad that you recommend me to play this game. And before I get into detail about it, I gotta say, playing through XCOM, I'm not done the game, but it really made me feel like playing Fallout Tactics, similar kind of game. And I played a lot of Fallout Tactics when I was younger. I love the original Fallout games and Fallout Tactics. It didn't get as much. I feel like it wasn't as popular as Fallout 1 and 2, but it had the squad-based gameplay rather than just the one guy.
Before we really start into XCOM, I do want to say, and I assume you're going to touch on this, but I'm really glad that your XCOM experience ended on like getting kicked in the balls by the game.
Yes,
because everybody who plays XCOM needs to have that experience one time where you do everything right, but the RNG goes spectacularly wrong and you just get fucked.
Yeah. It pretty much just decides to flip you the bird, and that's it.
Yes.
So before I talk about that, I want to start by saying I really, really enjoyed my time with XCOM. And this is the first game I played in a long time now that actually I could feel like the hooks of addiction in me. And I really wanted it. Like, I didn't want to stop playing. I'd always be disappointed, be like, oh, you know, I got to go to work. I got to go to sleep, whatever. So that was a pleasant surprise because a lot of the games I've been playing lately, they're fun. You know, I can look at them objectively and say, okay, yeah, that's a good game. But yeah, I really, really felt like I want to go back and play this. And despite what happened, I do want to go back and finish this game. So this is for people that haven't played XCOM. It's a squad-based isometric I guess the proper way to call it is a turn-based strategy game, and you control a squad of troops, and you kind of you have your turn where you can tell your troops where to go and take cover and attack things and do stuff like that, and then your turn ends, and then you get the aliens doing their thing. And this is a game about you fighting aliens. It actually, despite the fact that it's nothing really like X-Files, it gave me an X-Files vibe. Whenever you're in a mission and you see some aliens appear, these little like guitar chords play or something with a very like kind of X-Files kind of key, I guess is the word.
And I mean, the stock aliens are your standard gray.
Yeah, they're your gray aliens. Yeah, they call them sectoids in the game, but they're your gray like aliens with the big heads and the big eyes, and they don't have mouths. They're telepathic, right? That was pretty cool, actually. I liked the alien designs a lot because the first two that you see, which are the sectoids, those guys, and the thin men, they're like your stock standard aliens. They don't try to make super crazy different kind of alien designs. They're like, all right, let's make a game about some fucking Roswell aliens, and that's what this is.
I think the thing XCOM does the best is it has the perfect amount of like campy, ridiculous, like anything that anybody has watched, like X-Files or any kind of alien movie or show from the like late 90s. Like if you watch Independence Day or something, this game is really gonna like draw you in because it's got just the perfect amount of like ridiculous campy stuff.
This will absolutely tickle your biscuits, whatever you want to. Yeah, it's perfect for people to like that kind of stuff. And that's me, actually. Like, I loved X-Files. I loved Independence Day. Holy shit, amazing. So this definitely was right up my alley. Really, really great game. I thought some of the mechanics were kind of silly. This game, I mean, it's a turn-based game. Your units have a chance to hit enemies. It's not hitbox based or anything. It's not an action game.
No.
So there will be instances once in a while where your guy will be taking cover and there's like a giant metal crate or something, or like a piece of a spaceship between him and the enemy, but you can still shoot them just fine because you run into a bit of that.
Sometimes your line of sight won't be blocked, and if you took the shot from where your character was perfectly standing, it would make sense, but he'll like lean out really far from cover, which makes it so that he's shooting through a wall and it still hits the enemy. But that's just those are like little animation issues. mostly.
Yeah, it's just a little nitpick. I mean,
and it makes the game playable because I mean, if you had to worry about everything between you and a character, you never get any shots off, really.
Yeah, and the line of sight stuff, it is still pretty good for the most part. Like, I don't really have any complaints about that. There's a couple moments where it looked absolutely ridiculous because of how the game was handling it, but for the most part, I thought it worked out pretty well. I thought overall, like the squad mechanics, you outfit your guys, gotta research new technology. I thought that was pretty cool. I liked that also. For the first few events in the story, they're not part of specific missions. Like, one of the first objectives you get is that you need to capture a live alien. And there's no mission that you go to do that. You just have to go and do these like random event style missions and capture an alien in one of those. Like, it's pretty kind of loose in how they get you to do that. There's some missions where you do go to a specific location, but
and I'll tell you, that almost functions as like a player-imposed difficulty thing. We didn't talk much about the game, but there's like lots of little intricacies in the game. So new alien types are introduced in the game, but they are time-based. So if you want your experience to be a little bit easier, as soon as you get those missions, like when they tell you capture a live alien, if you do it the very next mission, you can like jumpstart and get through a bunch more missions before the really hard aliens start to show up. Conversely, there's no real punishment for not doing that mission, except that like by the time you do it, you might have like really strong alien types introduced, and that means that when you try to do the next mission, there will be even stronger ones. So it's like, if you really want to take your time, you can, but it's going to make all the missions a little bit harder. And if you speed through it, the missions will be a little bit easier, but also, it's a fine balance because you might not have as many weapons because you haven't put as much time into researching. So less hard aliens, but also worse weapons.
Now, it's worth pointing out that, or at least what I found with the game, on my second mission, I lost a guy. And this was the soldier that actually survived the tutorial mission. They always make one survive, and then he's like your veteran guy after that.
You can skip that tutorial mission, by the way, in future playthroughs. Like, you don't have to do that guided tutorial mission every time.
Yeah, well, I guess you probably wouldn't want to. I mean, you already know all the mechanics and stuff. But that's taught me that your soldiers are pretty fragile, and that carries through, at least as far as I played. Like, I upgraded to the carapace armor. I had mostly laser and plasma weapons by the time I stopped playing. And if you're not careful, you can lose squad mates pretty damn easily.
Yeah, and I had I told you should play on normal the first time.
Yes, and I believe
specifically because the difficulty jumps are insane. Like, the jump from normal to classic is like, you would consider, if you were looking at like a normal game, normal would be easy and classic would be very hard. Like, there's no difficulties between that, really. But the reason I wanted you to play on normal first is you don't have to be, when you're playing on classic, like, your games will take forever because when you get into an area, you're moving your guys like 4 spaces at a time, because if you trigger, like, if you move your last guy further up and you are out of moves and you trigger aliens, that's a free turn that they get to shoot at you, and they're probably going to hit you. So when you play on classic and impossible difficulty, like, you have to be super fucking careful. Like,
I was doing a bit of that. There was the first time that I actually had an event that was a saucer landing somewhere. And in XCOM, you have this sort of globe, and then you just let time pass and then wait for alien activity to happen somewhere on Earth. And then you go there and you deal with it. And sometimes it's there's abductions happening, so you got to fly in with your squad and land and just shoot a bunch of aliens. Sometimes you actually shoot down saucers with your own aircraft, and then you can travel out to them and deal with the few guys that survived. But sometimes you'll actually have a flying saucer just land, and it's not damaged, and there's lots of aliens because it's not a crash landing. None of them died. And when I had one of those, that was when I kind of thought, okay, better play this a little safe. And I was doing that. I was inching my guys forward. I wasn't just rushing in headlong. For one of the missions I did, one of my soldiers was still wounded, I think. I couldn't take them with me. So I threw on a red shirt, like a rookie that I hadn't used at all. I didn't really care. I was like, oh, whatever. So I would push forward with him and just like throw him into, dark areas just to flush out the aliens. And he died.
He died.
He did his job. Yeah.
The general consensus is it's a good idea when you're early in the game to kind of like level up a backup squad as well, so that you have some guys. They're not like super high level, but they're not rookies. So if you have a guy that's injured and you desperately need someone, I never fucking do that though. Like I'm so bad about it, dude. And I don't really feel like it impacts me that much. The thing about XCOM is it's a really flexible game. So like there's optimal ways to play the game, obviously. Like any game, there's min-maxers out there who have like, okay, this is what you want. This is how many of each class you need in your squad. But you can really play the game any way you want. And if you're careful enough and you're like knowledgeable enough to know like, oh, I should take this shot even though I don't have this great chance to hit, or I should put this guy in Overwatch. If you're careful enough, you can play it pretty much any way that you want to, which is another thing that I really like about it. Those
I got
UFO
that feeling actually. Like there's you have heavy weapons guys that have rocket launchers, and if you want, you can just fucking blow the crap out of cover, and like you can destroy stuff with grenades and rockets and that explosive kind of stuff, because a lot of the environment is destructible, probably most of it actually. But like you get chastised for doing that. Yeah, it's an easy way to destroy a whole bunch of stuff at once, but you don't get as much stuff to recover for research. You don't get as many materials.
You don't get as many like alien weapon parts or whatever if you blow things up. Which it's almost everything about XCOM is all about like balancing risk versus reward, and they do it so well.
And they do, and I got to tell you where I run into that the most. In XCOM, you have the system where if you don't do enough missions successfully in a certain part of the world, the panic level in that part increases. And if it goes high enough, that country will actually withdraw from this kind of like a secret council that's sort of overseeing the world or something. I don't know. Maybe it's revealed. I have no idea. I don't know. But you get money from those guys. Every country that's a part of the XCOM Council, they contribute a little bit of cash to your monthly income, and that's more research you can do. It's not research, but it's more like weapons you can build and stuff like that, more satellites you can throw up for surveillance. And if you don't manage that properly, then eventually they'll just pull out. I actually had like 4 countries pull out of the council so far.
That'll usually happen on your first playthrough when you're feeling out the game.
Yeah, and there were some points where they would almost be at maximum panic, but I just wasn't getting any missions in their area. So at that point, it was kind of like a lost cause. Like, oh, I'd like to go help you, but I just can't. Sorry.
It's like one of the things that people say to do, and this is something that I do when I play XCOM. You definitely want to mass up satellites. Like buy a bunch of satellites, get a bunch of uplink facilities, but don't launch those satellites right away. Because when you launch a satellite in a place, it like halves the panic in that place. So what you do is you hold on to them as like emergency devices. So if you don't get a mission and a place is about to draw out, you just launch a satellite over their place and kind of like, it's like putting a Band-Aid on the wound, basically.
Yeah. I ran into that problem too. I realized right around where I stopped playing that, man, I should have invested in more of the satellite uplink stations so I could have got that like more monthly income going in early game, right? Because then I ran out of funds. Like I had enough to get a pretty good squad going. The only reason I stopped was that my fucking sniper died. and she was really good. I gave her all the best shit. She was amazing, like a killer fucking assassin. It was awesome. But she died, and I got mad and I stopped playing.
That's excellent.
But that was my situation, by the way. Like, how in a lot of horror movies there'll be like the killer walking down a hall, like in the Halloween or something. It's Jason. He's going super slow, Michael Myers. And then there's a victim in the hallway, and she can't get away, and she's like trying to go through doors and windows, and he's walking really slowly, but he's like still right behind her also. It was basically like that, because I gave her a laser sniper rifle, which is a lot less effective at close range, and it was one of those giant metal discs that just does
cyber disc.
Yeah, that's the one. And those hurt a lot. And I actually got her into a room with the rest of the squad. She was really low on health, but I was like, okay, there's literally one dude left. There's one of those big brawler guys that with the grenades. That's exactly what he did. I got a reaction shot on him too, because I put her on Overwatch. And I was like, all right, we got this. Last dude, no problem. Easy. And then he decided, and which they hadn't done at all for that whole mission, by the way. That pissed me off the most. They saved the fucking grenade until the perfect moment. Threw the grenade in, like ding, ding, ding. And then I just realized, like, oh shit, this is the end. This is the end. And she got destroyed. She didn't even go into critical damage, by the way. Like, I had no opportunity there to revive her. That was it. Yep. And as you and I discussed after I stopped playing, I didn't have autosaves enabled.
Yeah.
And
apparently autosaves are off by default.
Yep. But you know what? Lesson learned. And I still had a ton of fun with the game, and I do intend to keep playing. Like I said at the start of this segment, I really felt that pull to keep playing, and I do want to finish it. It's a super cool game, and it really made me want to go back and play Fallout Tactics again, and other games in the genre like Silent Storm. That's a great one. It's kind of like World War One, World War Two era sort of combat. I think Jagged Alliance is another older one as well. There's some gems back there. I admit those two I haven't actually played yet, but I've seen them played. My brother friggin' loves Silent Storm. And I don't know, I think he kind of got me into that. So, yeah, I really, really enjoyed XCOM. I can see why it's doing so well and why it's getting a sequel. Of course, XCOM 2 is around the corner.
I don't know if maybe we want to save XCOM. Let's save XCOM 2 for next weekend. I know we promised we were going to talk about it.
I know.
We'll save it for next weekend. We'll kind of collaborate information more. Maybe there will be some more info by next week. I don't want to go too far over on this one. We're already 5 minutes over, and I prefer not to have like an hour and a half episode. So
yeah, we can jump into it and really dig our teeth into it next week.
I will say that XCOM is one of those games where your first playthrough is basically going to be a wash. You're not going to finish the game on that one because you're learning like the mechanics of the game, and it's at its core.
Hey, we'll see.
At its core, it's a pretty ruthless game. So like if you screw up too bad, it's going to be because if 7 nations pull out of the XCOM project, you lose, like straight up.
I didn't know that. Seriously?
Yeah. If enough places pull out, then you lose. That's that mechanic.
Okay.
So
that's something interesting. Then that's one more thing I want to mention real quick before we finish. In this case, if you have an abduction event happening, you can choose to ignore it. Like if you think you can't do it, if you have a lot of wounded soldiers or whatever,
very bad idea.
You can choose to ignore it. Very bad idea because then you'll have panic popping up. If you don't have enough money to put up satellites and stuff like that, then you're going to have people pulling out of the council. I think like France pulled out and Nigeria, and you know what? I didn't want them anyway. Fuck those guys.
You didn't need them. Who needs France on their team? Oh, I should have said that.
Don't say that.
Sorry, guys.
We're not actually racist.
Sorry, guys. It's not. It's nationalist.
Is it nationalism? Okay.
Yeah.
That's acceptable. Yeah.
It's much better than racism.
To be fair, those were lower income countries. They weren't giving me as much money in the first place. I did lose Russia.
Nigeria wasn't giving me a ton of money. Let me ask you a question. What kind of secret fucking society that's fighting aliens survives on $600 a month? That's like how much you get.
It's like the economy over there. Hey, maybe it's doing better.
It's really weird to me that they deflated the numbers so much like that. Like they could have easily just put a couple more zeros on, and maybe it would have made it a little more convoluted. But I mean, you buy a fucking satellite for $125. I wish I could buy a satellite for $125.
You know what pisses me off the most? When they withdraw from the council, you get a little news ticker that says they're teaming up with the aliens. It's like, reports of Nigerian officials in talks with the aliens. Like, hey, come on, don't surrender. Haven't you seen the fucking movies? That never goes well.
We haven't talked
enslave humans or something.
We haven't talked much about XCOM 2, and we're not going to touch on it too much. But XCOM 2 canonically starts with you having fucked up horribly in the first XCOM, so badly that you didn't even put up a fight, and everybody has like accepted the aliens' rule on Earth at this point.
Yes, and that's not a spoiler. Go watch the cinematic trailer for XCOM 2. That is exactly what they show you in that.
Yeah,
in that.
The basic description.
And you're like a resistance group or something.
The basic description literally is you fucked up so bad in the first XCOM game that the aliens had no resistance, and everybody has submitted to their rule at this point.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Good job.
Yeah.
Pat on the back.
We need to assign our trade-in game. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about that.
So we don't have much to talk about for it. I have not looked anything into this game because I knew I was going to play it at some point, and it's a puzzle game, so I didn't want to ruin anything. But we are going to be playing the same game this week, and we are both going to be playing the Talos Principle.
Talos Principle, that's right. That's one that I also don't know anything about, really. I just saw it on Steam, and you know what? The whole thing with like the screenshots, and I've seen a couple people talk about it. It just seemed cool, so I picked it up. Luckily, grabbed it on sale. Thanks, Valve.
Yeah. Thanks, Valve.
Yeah,
we just shit talked to you for like a half hour, but thanks for the sale. All I really know is that it's supposed to be the sort of like 3D puzzle based type thing that Portal is. Like I don't think there's a Portal gun in Talos Principle.
No.
But it's that same
seems
sort
like it
of
has a similar kind of aesthetic to it.
Yeah. So we'll see. We're doing the 2-week cycle again, so we will talk about that in 2 weeks' time. Next week we're going to talk about XCOM 2 and probably some other stuff. I really want to bring up This is like, it's like a joke for us, but I really want to talk about rhythm games, and we still haven't gotten a chance to.
At this point, we're probably not even going to do it until there's actual news about the new rhythm games, which are coming up. But
there's a bit of news that has come out since we decided we were going to talk about them. Not a ton, but we might have something to talk about.
We'll save it.
We'll see.
We'll hang on to that one. Yeah.
That's our kind of like backup if we really run out of stuff to talk about.
Yes, that's been our backup, by the way, pretty much since we started the show.
Yeah,
and we've never.
The second episode we were going to talk about it, and we ran out of time.
Yeah,
and since then it's just been sitting on the back burner. So
that's pretty much it.
I think we're done for today.
Yeah, I guess so. That's about it for this week, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I don't know who it was, but there was actually a couple more people this week tuning in. That was nice. Maybe the advertising finally paid off.
A couple trolls in the chat, but
yeah, whatever. It's all good. As usual, you can follow us on Twitter. It's at GNGN Podcast. And we switched off the automatic Twitch notifications. We're doing actual proper ones.
Yeah, I'm making actual posts.
There are real people behind them now. And of course, follow us on Twitch, subscribe, YouTube. It's all there. Do we have the YouTube link in the Twitch description now?
Yes, that's literally the only thing in the Twitch description.
God. Okay, so definitely follow us on all of your little Facebooks, your social medias, whatever. It's all good. We like it. And we, of course, try to broadcast every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That is what we're trying to stick to, and we did it this week, so let's do it again next week and every week after that, as long as we can.
We were only a few minutes late today.
Yeah, this one went pretty well. We started early. It was good.
Well,
all right.
We started late.
We started the stream
still
early.
Started late, really.
Yeah, the recording and all that business. Anyway, thanks everyone so much for watching, and you have yourselves a good night.